Hello and welcome to the Wise Wire this morning, or rather lunchtime. I am joined by Amy Jones, who runs the most successful YouTube channel called Selfish, who helps anxious avoidance. But you know what? I am not really good at explaining what Amy does. She is far better at it. And as usual, the Wise Wire is not about me. So Amy, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Amy Jones and I'm a certified attachment style coach, and I help anxious attachers break the cycle of avoidant and emotionally unavailable partners so that they can start to thrive in their independence and prevent future heartbreak. And I created this business to help anxious attachers specifically because that's what I was. I just could not figure out why my relationships were so dysfunctional. Um, so that is what my business is around, and I coach anxious attachers into becoming more secure in the relationships, and so that they can really have a relationship that they want to have rather than people pleasing, being too clingy and attached to people, where they can actually relax in the relationships.
Brilliant. And when I met my wonderful husband now, I was definitely defensive is a good word. Damaged is probably a little bit too dramatic, but definitely defensive and probably not very easy to go out with. In fact, I was probably more interested in running as fast as I could to keep away and not get caught. So I wondered if you could explain a little bit more about where anxious attachment styles come from, because we've all got an attachment style. You know, I know that depending what's gone on in my life at a particular time, I will have a different attachment style to deal with that situation, and I watch it in my own daughter. So I wondered if you could explain a little bit about what it is that causes it.
Well, there are four attachment styles. We've got anxious attached, avoidant attached, fearful avoidant attachment, and the one that everyone's aiming for, which is secure attached. So everybody on the planet has an attachment style. Now, anxious attachment really does root into childhood. So if you grew up in a household where you were taught that your feelings didn't matter, where you were emotionally, put my teeth back in, emotionally neglected in your childhood, you might well have formed an anxious attachment style. So if I'm using my own example of my own upbringing, I grew up with a father that was definitely on the spectrum for narcissism and a really codependent mother, which meant that my needs as a child, even though, you know, I had a roof over my head, I was clothed, I was fed, emotionally, my needs weren't met. So in your childhood, you create a coping strategy for survival, because when you're small, you literally will not survive without your caregivers. So we subconsciously develop a style in which to get our needs met. So what that meant for me in my childhood was that I had to be a certain way. I had to people please. I had to take on things that my dad was interested in so that I would get the attention that I craved. And I took this into my adult relationships as well, because if that stuff goes unhealed, we will continue to see our adult relationships through the same lens. That I've got to be something else. I can't be myself. I've got to bend over backwards to keep this person. I need to people please. And anxious attachers are really, really hyper attuned to their partner's needs, which unfortunately means that sometimes that's going to be taken advantage of, which is why anxious attachers often find themselves in relationships with abusive partners, with narcissistic partners, with dismissive avoidant attachment styles. Number one, because that's really familiar, because we are used to working hard for love, we're used to working hard for attention, but also it's easy to take advantage of that. And that's exactly what happened to me in my adult life, that I ended up with two partners that were dismissive avoidant attachment styles because they were just so familiar to me. I didn't know what secure love looked like. I didn't know what it felt like. I didn't even know that it existed, because in my mind, this is what love looks like. This is what love is. And obviously, as I went down that road, I started to do quite a lot of work on myself. I had a really, really enmeshed relationship with an ex-partner who did display quite a few narcissistic traits. I'd really got an enmeshment relationship with him. It was very on and off for 7 years. And then I learned about attachment styles, and a light bulb moment happened. I thought, this is why I can't function in relationships. And also, it wasn't just me. I realized that actually there are millions and millions and millions of people in the same painful cycle where they completely abandon themselves for the relationships because that's just what they're so used to doing. It doesn't feel safe to not meet this person's needs all the time. It doesn't feel safe to not rock the boat. If it is that you are unhappy with something, maybe you've had quite a few partners in your adult life where you have tried to have a conversation and express a need, and they've just gone up like a firework, and then you kind of think, oh, I'm not going to do that again. And what my coaching style is to help you heal from the seat in which this started to happen. So we go all the way back into your childhood so we can actually start to reparent ourselves and be the parent that we didn't have. And that, for a lot of us, includes grieving a lot of what happened, grieving the stuff that should have happened that didn't happen. And that is what my business is. And I've helped hundreds and hundreds of people the world over with this. And, you know, we've had really, really good successes. Me now, I am a single person, but I'm perfectly happy on my own. I'm open to a relationship, but also I don't need one. And it's great.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's no, that's absolutely brilliant. And it's really cool. I think, you know, I met Dennis when I'd made the decision I didn't need a relationship. And I think that's a really strong moment because, you know, up to that point, I'd come out of the divorce and I was battered and bruised emotionally and physically, to be honest. And my attachment style was all over the place. And it's really interesting how that period of time through the divorce to meeting my husband, who is just amazing. And we are very much two people who dance around a figure of eight. We're not two C's coming together to create an O. We definitely dance around each other. We respect each other. The foundation of our relationship is respect and then love. I know that sounds a bit weird, but that was something that was very important to me. It was just really interesting about how in that period and what you were talking about, reparenting yourself, grieving, I had to do a lot of soul searching to become the person I am now, to be somebody that could be accepting of love. But it started with loving myself. And I wondered if you could explore a little bit about how, you know, how that might have impacted. I know it's from my own personal experience, but how that might actually be connected somehow.
I think self-love is absolutely connected to your attachment style and how you actually function in relationships. As I said before, anxious attachers tend to abandon themselves for the relationship. Secure people do not do this. Secure people have the perfect balance of this is me, I deserve respect, I deserve love, and then there's the relationship. So they are very much, if you think about it like a tree, they're the tree, the relationship's just a branch of that tree. With anxious attachers, it's the other way around. The relationship is the trunk and they're the branch. And anxious attachers, unfortunately, have got such a low bar for respect, for behavior, because they've grown up in an environment that at times perhaps could be quite abusive. And I remember a time actually where my ex-partner had screamed at me, and I ran my best friend to tell her about this incident, about what had happened. And she said, what's more worrying is that you've had no reaction to how he spoke to you. And I didn't. It was normal. It didn't raise any red flags. It was, oh, well, he's just in a bad mood. I didn't look at the behavior as abusive. And that's because I didn't have any self-respect. So if I didn't respect myself, how can I expect anybody else to? And that was a real hard realization. It was a hard thing to face, that I did not respect myself. Because if you'd have asked me, Kirsty, at the time, I'd have said, yeah, of course I do. I love myself. I respect myself. But I didn't really. I just thought that I did. But actual deep self-love, self-worth, and self-respect, you know, no one's going to give that to you. You've got to do it. You've got to give it to yourself. And when you can do that, the bar is much higher. So you're going to be able to weed out the people who don't treat you with respect. And also, the first sign of it, the alarm bells are going to go off, whereas they perhaps didn't before, because you were so used to that sort of behavior. You didn't think it was a big deal. Maybe you made excuses for this person. But when you can get into real deep self-love and self-respect, the bar is much higher, which means that there's going to be less choice, but it means the choices that you're going to have are choices that you can actually make something real out of, if that makes sense.
No, thank you for making me feel really good and I apologize to everybody that I did date and didn't survive my 6-week rule. So I apologize profusely to all of the gentlemen that I may have dated before I met my husband, because that is exactly what I did. I set somewhere along the line, I mean, for me, it was slightly different. I went into a women's refuge and the refuge worker said to me, we need to just work on you. And we were talking about breaking the cycle, actually. And it's very much, I won't go into my own childhood because I want to talk about you. But it was due to trauma in early childhood. But what I do want to know is, so you've come out of this, you've gone off and you've trained, and now you have a successful, amazing, insightful, educational, just brilliant YouTube channel. So I wondered if we could just talk about that, because I love your videos. I've said that from you from the very first time I met you. I love your videos. I love your content. I love your style because it's easily to connect to you. So can you just talk about how that journey came about? Because it's not normal from somebody to suddenly go, I'm going to launch a YouTube channel.
No, it's not. And it wasn't an easy journey either, because I still am introverted. I don't particularly like attention. I don't even like my photograph being taken. So starting a YouTube channel was quite anxiety inducing for me, but I thought, well, it's either a YouTube channel or it's a blog. And I hate writing, long form writing. So it had to be the YouTube channel. I had to find a way to overcome the fear that I got about being seen, because it's a massive platform and there's going to be, you know, I'm out there for the world to see. And it was really anxiety. I still feel it now when I think about that. I think, oh God, there's loads of people that can see me. But now that I've got a following, and now that I can interact with people on the platform, it doesn't feel so anxiety inducing. It's like I'm inviting these people into my living room and having a chat with them, validating them. These people are amazing people who've had such a similar experience to me that I don't feel like I'm talking to strangers anymore. I don't feel like it's people that are just sort of random people. It's people that have gone through the same thing I have. It's people I can relate to and they can relate to me. There's a connection there, which I don't think I would have got with long form blogging. I really don't think I would have. And also, when I thought about when I've bought coaching, where did I get the coaching from? YouTube. And I thought, well, why did I get it from YouTube? Because I can see the person. I can see the person who's going to be coaching me. I can relate to that person more on camera than what I could, you know, sort of read in a blog. Ironically, though, Kirsty, I did come to you from a blog post that you wrote. I just thought that and thought, oh no, I didn't with Kirsty.
Oh, well, I'm going to take that.
So the video format, I just found it a lot easier to explain what attachment styles were, what my story was, and I could just come across more authentically, I suppose, which is the bottom line. I can express myself better on videos and through talking than I ever could write in a blog.
So I'm going to give you a little tip here that I use. So I take the transcript from my video and I turn that into some of my blogs. So you probably did read what was initially a video of mine. And it's really interesting because I'm not worried about having, obviously, monetizing my channel. For me, my channel is there. It's a repository for videos that I use with my clients. And then I turn it into blogs. And it's really interesting because I don't think, actually, if I'm really honest, my content's going to go the same way as yours. Yours is absolutely brilliant and it's so informative. So I wondered, along the way, you must have had some aha moments, or just some aha moments that made you go, I found my place, or this is just, and for me, I get it quite a lot. It's a real gut thing. This is the wrong thing for me. And it's an instant. It's like, nope, this isn't right. I'm walking away. So I wonder if we could just talk about that kind of gut feeling of, yep, or, oh no, I'm out of here.
Yeah, so there's two moments that really spring to mind. Number one is when I first started this channel, there was very much a spirituality element to it. And for whatever reason, it just didn't feel comfortable to me. It just didn't feel like I was reaching the right people. It didn't feel like my story was resonating with the right people. So I thought, no, I'm just going to stick to the bread and butter of this, the actual ground of this, which is psychology. So that was one of the moments. And from that, I did lose a lot of subscribers from my channel. And that was the fear of stopping doing that sort of content, that I would lose subscribers, which is fine. They're not my tribe, and that's okay. There's channels that they can go to that will fill that need. And the second one was being able to show up more authentically on camera. Before, I was quite guarded. I didn't want to overshare, I suppose. I didn't want to make people feel uncomfortable with me expressing how I felt about a certain situation that I remembered. I didn't stop to think that maybe they'd been through the same thing and it would be really validating. I didn't want to overshare information, and I was quite sort of guarded until but again, it was my lack of boundaries that with the issue. And when I really sat with it and thought about, it's okay to have boundaries, but I don't have to keep everything so close to my chest and be robotic about it. And, saying this is what anxious attachment style is. People resonated a lot more when I was bringing my own experience into it. So I think that was the second light bulb moment of being able to show up authentically, but with boundaries as well, and getting that balance, I suppose. Really helped the channel. It really helped my followers as well be able to connect with me a lot more. So I suppose that was the second light bulb moment.
That's brilliant, because it's really interesting, because I got called out by somebody at the beginning of January for not talking. I talk about the childhood trauma. I talk around it. It's not, I want to talk about you. But I did get called out because I talked about this childhood trauma. I talked about lots of different things, but I hadn't actually talked properly about my time in refuge. And that was a really interesting moment, because it was like, I don't feel sad about it, and I don't feel it defines me, and I don't feel that I own any blame to the person that I was in the relationship with. And it's interesting because he definitely had the anxious attachment. I mean, it was suffocating. And that's not his fault. He's a child of trauma. And so I couldn't even go to the corner shop without him worrying that I was going to be doing something. So it became very, very, very tight. And it became very much him and me against the world. And so for me to leave that was incredibly difficult. And even now, it was really difficult, because I did care about him. And at one point I did love him, but I couldn't breathe. And it's just really interesting what you're talking about. And, if he's listening to this, you never know, get in touch with Amy, because I know that you're a good guy underneath it all. It wasn't your fault. And that's a really interesting thing, because a lot of people think I should hold on to blame and I should be angry. And I'm like, but I'm not. And I'm not. So I wondered if we could talk about forgiveness for a little bit. I don't know how we got here. I love the way my brain works. But I wonder if we could talk about, one, forgiving yourself, and two, forgiving maybe the partner, because it's not their fault, or my opinion is.
Forgiveness is something that comes up a lot. And because obviously I coach people that are in the throes of a breakup, where sometimes forgiveness isn't an option right now. And if you're there right now, sometimes not forgiving somebody in the moment is the healthiest thing you can do. If that's going to stop you from really spiraling into self-blame, for now, it's okay to say, no, it's all their fault, and take some room to breathe. But what I want people who are watching to do, if it is that you feel like you are clinging on from something that somebody's done to you in the past, maybe it's your parents, maybe it is an ex-partner, is a quick reframe that forgiveness is actually for you. It's not for the other person. Forgiveness is for you so that you aren't giving that person real estate in your mind anymore. When we are clinging on to resentment or bitterness, not that there's anything wrong with that, you guys, normal feelings, but when we are clinging on to them for longer than necessary, all we're doing is hurting ourselves. So when we forgive, it's not for that person. They're not going to know if you've forgiven them or not, but it's your choice to think, I'm not going to give that my energy anymore. And the effort I'm taking to hold on to this for dear life because I can't be hurt again, it's just going to affect relationships going forward as well. Because if you don't forgive, you won't process what happened. And if you don't process what happened, you'll just take it into another relationship. So use that. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. They're not going to know that you've done it. But at least you can let go of that anxious, bitter that you might be carrying around with you. That's the only way I can describe it. And I've been there, I've been there with my ex-husband where I did not want to forgive him. I just did not want to. In the end, I did, and I felt a lot better for it. And actually, the relationship between me and my ex-husband transformed where we can healthily co-parent a child together. And that was because of forgiveness on both sides. I wasn't an angel in that relationship. I can tell you that.
I was toxic. Yeah, with you on there.
I really wasn't an angel. So, and he has obviously had to do his internal work to let go of what I did in that as well. But in terms of forgiving yourself, this is harder on so many levels, especially if you are anxious attached, because you have been pre-wired with this belief that everything's your fault. So we go, I suppose, the other way, Kirsty, of completely blaming ourselves and not looking at what the other person's done. So we'll go through a breakup and think, I've just messed up the most perfect relationship I've ever been in. And it's all my fault. It's because I'm so toxic. I'm not good enough. I'm unworthy. I'm too clingy. This person's perfect. And it's me that's the problem. And that's what anxious attachers have been wired with from childhood. So we actually go the other way. And I suppose my advice to anxious attachers would be to take the rose-colored glasses off and look at the relationship for how it was objectively. Because I can tell you, if you were with an avoidant partner, somebody who was emotional and unavailable, a narcissistic partner, they are not going to be blameless. I can tell you that now. It takes two people to break a relationship up. So if you can take the rose-colored glasses off and actually see what was going on and see how, yes, you might have some responsibility in this, but you won't be 100% responsible. Start there and start learning how to understand that your actions sometimes are subconscious. You can't help it. Sometimes you're not even aware that you're doing it. You're not even aware that you cling on to people. You might not have the conscious awareness that that is what you're doing, and forgive yourself for it, because your subconscious mind is responsible for 97% of your actions. You're not even thinking about what it is that you're doing because you're so pre-programmed with it, and that isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to change it. So self-forgiveness is a way, I suppose, of accepting that, yeah, I did do that. yeah, I did say those things that I'm not proud of saying. Yes, I did overly cling, and I didn't mean to. I was just so afraid of losing this person, because unless you can forgive yourself, you're not going to change it.
That
You're
is
just
just
going to keep on
brilliant.
going through it.
Yeah, that is brilliant, brilliant advice. And it is. I think the way the refuge worker said it, it takes two people to make it and two people to break it. It's not,
Absolutely.
and it is about owning it. You know, I certainly wasn't a saint. But I was also very young, and I'm not going to say that was a bad thing. I'm just going to say that I was very young, and I've grown up a lot since then. You know, it's 20 years ago since I walked away. But this is where the tables turn. We've been talking for nearly 26 minutes, and you get to throw a question at me because you've been in the hot seat. You've done brilliantly, by the way, and it's just been such an insightful episode. I cannot wait for people to listen to this because it's just brilliant. As I said, you get to turn the question to me, so let's see if I can do it.
Okay. What attachment style would you say you were, Kirsty?
Oh, that's really interesting. I would have said I was definitely an avoidant and anxious attacher. I would now say that about 70% of the time I have a secure attachment, and then at least 30% of the time one of the other styles will come in. So I would say that a lot of the time you used a tree. I would say I'm very much like an iceberg floating in the sea, and underneath sometimes my legs are pedaling. I think I overthink too much a lot of the time. I overanalyze. But the big thing for me is I can now, because I've got a secure attachment, I can now go, no, this is me worrying. This is me putting things in that are unnecessary. I think it was a very difficult thing that happened to us as a family in my childhood. You know, it's not every day your sister gets knocked over by a car and then is taken away. So I was only 3 when that happened. So that kind of, and I was born mute, so I couldn't speak. So the person who was my kind of voice disappeared. So I had that ripped away at 3. So that then set off a spiral. So I was a people pleaser, definite people pleaser, desperate, seeking attention all the time. And anyone who went to school with me for secondary will know I used to even have a terrible fake laugh that I used to say was my own laugh, but it wasn't. It was fake because I knew it did things. I would do things deliberately to seek attention because I didn't get that security. And that's not my parents' fault. It really isn't. It's just at 3 years old, my sister was in hospital for 10 weeks and she was my best mate. And so I would say it bounces around the circle of attachment styles. And I think it always will. But the difference is that I can now recognize when I am kind of spiraling and I can catch myself. And also, I'm very privileged that I can look at my beautiful husband, who's usually in the office over there, and go, he loves me and he respects me for who I am and what I am. And what I really do is I work really hard to help my daughter have a secure attachment because mine was all springy all over the place. And so I do work really hard to make sure that I don't criticize her, that I don't gaslight her, that I always say that her feelings are valid, to the point where she goes, Mummy, I know it's okay to feel like this. Yeah, I know, but I want to give you permission because I don't want her to have what I had. So I would say, as I said, 70% secure, and then the others bounce around. But I think that's quite normal. What do you think?
I think many of us are on the spectrum, and I think it depends on what subject it is that you're talking about as well. Because in relationships, I'm quite secure now, but if you talk to me about money, anxious, I've got a super anxious attachment to money. I hoard it, or and I won't let it go. So I think it depends on which areas of life you're looking at as well. But I think it's absolutely normal for, particularly if you've had a childhood where there has been a really profound trauma like that. I think it's absolutely normal. I think you're doing dead well. The fact that you notice that you're doing it is amazing as well, because a lot of us just don't. A
Yeah,
lot of us think, no, it's normal.
I will say it's not easy, and I think being a mum, definitely being a mum changed me, but it's not easy, and it's definitely a work in progress. But that's why I asked you on, because I know that we all have, and this is the whole thing, I know we all have an attachment style that is dictated by what has happened in our lives, and I know that you can help so many people. So if you aren't sure where to find Amy, look at Selfish on the YouTube channel. I will put everything into it. Please, 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 if you are worrying or just not sure what's going on and you're questioning an awful lot, reach out to Amy, because she really will help you. She is phenomenal. Thank you for your time today.
No worries at all. Thank you for having me, Kirsty.